Hey fourth graders, it's your art teacher Mr. Wedge, and for this project we're going to draw a ball and a cube, and we're going to shade them to make them look real. So for this project you'll need a paper, a Q-tip, and a pencil to draw with. And if you don't have a Q-tip, just twist up the end of a tissue into a point, and you can use that to smudge with, or a paper towel, just twist it up. And that's just so you can smudge and blend, because we're going to be getting, when you shade, you don't want lines. So I could draw a line like this, right? And I could go back and forth like this. But what you can do in art is actually, if you go back and forth real close with your lines, you can just make it look like a solid value. Value just means light and dark. So I'm going to put my name on the back of my paper and your class code underneath. You don't have to do what I just did. I was just trying to show you something. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a ball and a cube. So a ball is the shape of a circle, kind of like this. You know, that's a circle, but we're going to make it look 3D so it looks like a ball or a sphere. So all you need to do first is just draw a circle. And if you want to trace it, you can trace it. That's fine. A cube, you know, is a square, but it's a 3D square. So to do a cube, we are actually going to draw some different sides of the cube. And I'm just going to show you a really quick, easy way to do that. You can draw a rhombus, a sideways rhombus, that looks like this. So just like a sideways V, and then another sideways V. Just like that. And that's a cool way to draw like a table, the top of a table. But this is going to be the top of our cube. You can use this shape for a lot of things, but we're going to turn it into a cube. So step one, draw a diamond on its side, or a rhombus on its side. Okay? Step three for the cube is take these corners, these three corners. Don't worry about the top one. Just these bottom three corners right here. And go straight down, but make them all the same length. So these went down like this, right? They're the same. This one is starting lower than these, so it's got to go a little bit lower. It's got to go down to about there. So just make sure when you do the middle one, you don't make it as long as these two, because then it's not going to be as long as they are, because they started higher, so they finished higher. This started lower, so it's got to finish lower. And then you just connect them, two lines to connect them. And then you've got the top of a cube, and we'll say the front of a cube and the side of a cube. So you've got a ball and a block, and we're going to shade them now to make them look real. So first thing you got to do is pick a side where the light's coming from. I'm going to say the light's coming from the left, so I'm going to put a little arrow there. You could put a light bulb or a picture of the sun there if you want, or a lamp or a candle or whatever you want, just to remind yourself that that's where the light is coming from. Light always comes from somewhere. And so wherever the light hits, the shadows are always going to be on the other side. And when we shade, that's what we're going to really draw, is the shadows. And we're just going to do the form shadows today, and I'll explain what that is in a second. If you remember doing your value scales, we talked about how you could shade white, light, medium, dark, and black. But you could do it solid blocks like that. But you could also take the whole thing and just fade it from white to black. So it's real gradual and there are no jumps. Well, this bottom one is how we're going to shade the ball. And the top one with the blocks is how we're going to shade the block. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. We'll start with the ball. So we're going to fade from light to dark because the ball is round like this. So if you think about it, the light's coming from here. It hits here, so that's going to be light. The shadow's going to be on the other side. So I'm actually going to shade this side of the ball. And on a ball, the shadow's kind of shaped like a banana, or like the moon when part of it's covered up. You see that curve? And already it kind of looks more 3D than it did before. It looks more realistic. But I'm going to actually go a little bit lighter right here, because a sphere or a ball is round. So you've got to fade your shadow. You got to fade the shade. Just like that. And there'll be like a like a white oval or a white circle where the light's hitting. But then down here on this curvy part, it's going to get darker. And because the ball's round, you want it to fade, to be gradual. You don't want solid jumps. So I'm going to keep fading and making it darker. And I'm kind of like coloring, but I'm not using color, right? Because there's no color here. Colors are like in the rainbow. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. This is just gray, so we call this value. There's actually no color in this drawing. It's just light and dark. So think of shading like coloring without color. I'm coloring in my shadow, but I'm not actually using color, right? And then when I'm done, I'm going to use my Q-tip and I'm going to smudge it and blend it like this. And that'll help it fade more. Because I don't want to see any lines, I just want it to look gray. So there we go. There's how to use value and shading with a pencil to make a circle look like a sphere or a 3D circle or a ball. Okay? And that's the same, I use the same technique that I did for this value scale. So now I'm going to use this technique to shade this. So you do have to use your imagination a little bit and think, well, the light's coming from here, so what parts of this cube are going to be light and what parts are going to be dark? Well, if you think about it, if the light's coming from here, this will be pretty light, right? It's also coming from above, so this will be pretty light. This will be a lot darker. So I'm going to actually start with this one. Doesn't matter where you start, but I'm going to shade this surface in, but I don't want this to fade because this is a flat surface. This part is going to be just as dark as this part because it's all one flat surface. It doesn't curve away from the light the way the ball does. So I'm going to shade it in as best I can and try to make it all one solid value. And you can use your Q-tip or your twisted tissue to kind of blend it and make it all one solid thing. I didn't need to, so I'm all set. This is probably going to be a little lighter. So I'm going to also do the same thing for this surface, just make it one solid gray. But I'm not pushing down as hard because the light's hitting it a little bit. And I'm going back and forth when I shade in different directions. And then I am going to kind of just fix it. This will just make it solid, get rid of the lines. And then the top one, I'm just going to go, the light's coming from above too. I'm just going to make this very light, just so it looks different. But there we go, a ball and a cube. And we used the same tricks we used when we did our value scales. But the reason you do this is so you can do this. Now you've got a realistic drawing. So work hard, have fun.